Let's jump right into today's explainer. We are exploring a truly ancient Uttarakhand legend, one that's absolutely steeped in reverence and mystery. We're looking at a story that bridges this massive gap between an epic, world-shaking historical conflict and the quiet, ultimate pursuit of spiritual peace. It's a narrative centered around one of the most mysterious and sacred locations in all of Uttarakhand, a place whose very foundations are directly linked to the mighty Lord Shiva and the legendary aftermath of the Mahabharata.
So what exactly connects the bloody aftermath of the Mahabharata to the sacred, pristine Himalayas? It's a pretty wild contrast, right? On one hand, you have the chaotic, incredibly violent fallout of a great war, a conflict with just an unimaginable scale of devastation. And on the other hand, you have the totally serene, untouched peaks of the mountains. How do two totally opposite worlds collide? Well, the answer really lies in the human conscience, the incredibly heavy weight of regret, and a completely desperate search for redemption. Let's look at exactly how this started. Section 1. The burden of war. Seeking redemption. Imagine the absolute, crushing guilt that these victors carried. After the dust finally settled on the Mahabharata War, the triumphant Pandavas realized the horrifying, unthinkable cost of their victory. They were completely consumed by remorse. And why? Because the enemies they had just slaughtered on the battlefield weren't strangers. They were literally their own relatives, their own family. That burden of bloodshed was just way too much for anyone to bear. They desperately needed to be freed from these immense sins, and that overwhelming guilt is what drove them to seek out the divine grace of Lord Shiva.
But, divine forgiveness doesn't just fall right into your lap, even if you are a mighty warrior. Section 2. The Divine Hide and Seek. Journey to the Himalayas.
Driven by that heavy guilt over kinship murder, the Pandavas began a grueling, freezing retreat deep into the Himalayas. But here's the twist. Lord Shiva actually avoided them. He retreated higher up into the high-altitude Kedarnath region. To test their resolve, and basically to avoid detection, the deity took on the physical disguise of a bull, hiding out among a grazing herd. But the Pandavas were incredibly determined. The mighty warrior Bhima actually managed to recognize the disguised deity and went right for him, catching the divine bull. This physical clash is absolutely crucial to the legend. Section 3, Origins of Kedarnath Temple, Divine Manifestation. Picture the dramatic peak of this chase. You've got the rugged, freezing Himalayan terrain, the disguised deity trying to slip away, and Bhima lunging forward with everything he has. Bhima manages to catch hold of the bull's back, and in that very split second, the disguise drops. Lord Shiva instantly manifests and appears right before them. And that specific moment gives us the definition of the temple we know today. The Kedarnath temple isn't just an arbitrary place of worship that someone picked out on a map. It marks the exact, precise geographical and spiritual location where the back of that divine bull appeared. The temple literally stands today as a permanent monument to that sudden moment of divine manifestation, the exact spot where the Pandavas' desperate pursuit finally met the divine presence. Now, you might think the story wraps up with the founding of Kedarnath. Not even close. Section 4. The Panch Kedar Mystery. The Scattered Divine. The mystery actually continues far beyond the walls of Kedarnath. When Shiva manifested, the rest of the bull's body didn't just vanish into thin air. It's scattered. It's almost like a giant divine puzzle. Different parts of the bull appeared at completely distinct locations all across the Himalayas. And eventually, those scattered parts formed the Panch Kedar, a sacred circuit of 5 different temples that map out a literal trail of divine presence across those treacherous mountain ranges. This ancient myth actually created a living, breathing legacy. Section 5. Path to Soul Purification. Journey of the Soul. For the thousands of devotees who trek through those freezing altitudes today, this represents a totally dual experience. On the surface, sure, it is a highly demanding, grueling physical journey through some really unforgiving mountains. But on a much deeper level, it's a path of ultimate soul purification. The extreme physical effort required to hike it mirrors the Pandavas' own intense struggle to shed the heavy, heavy burden of their past. The enduring local beliefs offer a pretty profound promise for anyone who makes the trek. The ancient texts say devotees who travel to Panch Kedar with a true heart receive Shiva's special grace. So it's not just about completing a really hard hike, it's all about your intention. Approaching these scattered pieces of the divine with genuine sincerity and a true heart is the absolute key to unlocking that special grace and finding the forgiveness that the Pandavas were so desperately searching for. The Pandavas carried the immense, crushing guilt of an epic war, and their desperate pursuit of peace literally shaped the sacred landscape of the Himalayas forever. Their whole story is a powerful reminder that sometimes finding freedom from our very heaviest regrets requires a really long, arduous journey and the humility to actually seek grace. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. What burdens are you carrying on your own path to purification?